All right, I got a 2004 Toyota Sequoia in here. It's got a transmission leak. I had it in here a few weeks ago, and it looked like it was the rear seal. There's transmission fluid all over the trans tunnel, getting flung off by the dry shaft or whatever. I changed that seal, and he called me and said it's still leaking. So I brought it back in, took a look at it, figured out what it was, and ordered the part. And we're going to put it in real quick. So I'm going to show you what's going on with it and how this can trick a lot of people into thinking that it's the output shaft seal when it's not. It's not a bad idea to change that if you got a lot of miles on it. But anyway, I did that and assumed that's what it was. And got kind of bit in the butt on it because it's back here again. But anyway, this isn't, the problem that it has is not super common, I don't think. I have, from the research I did see some other Toyotas having this trouble. So anyway, I'm going to get out of there and show you what the mess is, and then we'll pull the dry shaft, and I'll show you what's going on with it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get under it real quick here. I got it set up on jack stands, of course. I got a pan under the dry shaft so that it'll catch any fluid. We take the dry shaft out. First, I'm going to show you what's going on under there and show you the mess, and then show you what the actual problem is. So we'll get under there real quick, and I'll show you what's going on. All right, so we're under here now. You can see there's fluid right here. There's fluid all around here. There's fluid all over the yoke right here. You can kind of tell it's just flung it all over the bottom of the truck here, all the way back by the exhaust. There's fluid. And originally, when I saw the drips here and all around here, I thought, well, it's got to be this output shaft seal is leaking. I went ahead and replaced it, put it back in, cleaned it up, and it's still dripping. And if you look real close inside here, it's hard to tell. I don't know if, I might be able to show you more when I get it apart. The actual yoke in the middle here, there's like a welded piece or some kind of plug. It's what holds the yoke to this. And it goes in the transmission. Well, it's actually leaking out of that right there. So I don't know if it's I have to look at it. I'm not real sure if it's a weld or just some kind of seal or whatever. I did some research on it. It seems like some of the Toyotas have this issue. This one's got 70,000 miles on it. So that's not, it's not like it's a low mileage, it's high mileage. And like I said, I got kind of burnt on it because I replaced the seal in here, which isn't a bad thing. It could have been leaking at one point or whatever. It's old, whatever. It's only like a $10 seal. It wasn't that bad, but that's not where the actual leak is coming from. It's actually coming from this actual yoke, the whole unit. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this, the U-joint actually looks newer. So I may not replace the U-joint, we'll have to see. But, yeah, the U-joint looks like it's almost brand new. I wonder if someone put a junkyard yoke in here maybe. Try to fix this problem. I'm not sure. But, yeah, the U-joint looks new. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this dry shaft out. I bought a new yoke from Toyota. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this dry shaft out, get it on the bench, and then we'll take a look at it. But that's where the fluid's coming from. It's coming from inside this yoke here. It's leaking out through the metal. It's pretty crazy it's doing that. I haven't really seen that too much in my career. I don't think I've ever seen it on a Chevy or anything like that. I'm not saying it's not possible, but I don't think I've ever really seen the fluid leak outside the middle of this yoke like that before on most of the stuff that I work on. But I have, from the research I did, and there's not a lot of stuff out there, but I have seen people talk about it happening on the Toyotas here. So anyway, we'll go ahead and pull this dry shaft real quick and then get it on the bench. And I was going to change the U-joint, but I may not now, looking at it, because it looks like it's pretty new. So we'll pull the dry shaft and see what's going on. And one thing I forgot to mention, or maybe I did, I forgot, but if you want to put a pan underneath here before you pull your dry shaft, because you will leak some fluid out of there, when you remove that yoke or the dry shaft. So just put a pan under there and catch the fluid. I got it pretty level right now. It probably won't leak a whole lot, but it will leak some. So that's just to put a pan under there and catch anything that comes out. All right, one thing I will point out, you got four 14 millimeter nuts on this dry shaft to pull it out. One thing I will point out about it though is if you're going to pull your dry shaft out, make sure you're on level ground. You got the wheels shot, maybe the emergency brake on. I'm on level ground. I got it on jack stand, so it's not going anywhere. But if you pull this dry shaft out, obviously you're going to be disconnecting your rear axle from the transmission, then the car can roll freely. So just be careful or mindful of that if you don't do this a lot or not. Even if you're seasoned, you can't. Sometimes you may forget about things like that. So anyway, just make sure that it's not going to go anywhere when you pull the dry shaft out. So I got 3 more nuts to get to, then we'll just slide this out. So I got the dry shaft laid out on the floor here. What's making it kind of interesting, I don't know if this is original Toyota tag or not. I can't read it. But the dry shaft seems like it's painted with kind of a cheap black paint. And the U-joints are newer looking. This one here looks almost brand new up here. Or, not that old. I'm wondering if anybody knows, I'm not a big Toyota guy, if this is a regular Toyota tag here, or if that's an aftermarket. Like I said, I can't read it, so maybe it is older than I think it is. Maybe it is original. It just seems like it's got kind of a cheap black paint job on it. And with the U-joints being fairly new, it makes me wonder if this is some kind of aftermarket dry shaft. Maybe something happened to the original one or something. I'm not sure. But I got it on the ground here. I'm going to beat the U-joints out. I don't usually like to press them out. If you have one that's seized or rusty, sometimes you can bend things and distort things and screw things up. I really don't want to have to buy a new dry shaft for this or have anything like that. So for me personally, I know people argue back and forth or who says one way is better than the other. For me personally, I normally like to beat them out with a socket and a hammer or something like that. I almost think this one, as new as it is, would probably come out no problem with like a press or a ball joint remover. A lot of times guys use ball joint removers and they use that to pull these out. You can put them in a vise and, hold the dry shaft up and then have someone turn the vise and pop them out that way. There's different ways to do it, but I generally like to beat them out. And I actually talked to a guy here in St. Louis, Dry Shafts Unlimited, and I asked him what he thought was the best way to do it since he does it full time. And he said that they like to beat them out too. So that's just what I do now. So anyway, you got to go ahead and take these clips out. There's 2 of them, 1 on each side. Actually, we won't take these out because we're going to leave this area in. But you can see here this U-joint looks brand new. So what we're going to do is to get the yoke out, if we were replacing the U-joint, we would take these 2 out, but we're not replacing the whole U-joint. So we're going to take this off and replace it. So I'll get the snap rings off of that. Just use a pair of needle nose. They pop right out. And then we'll tap it out, and then we'll see if we can get a better look at what's going on once we get it off. So one thing I like to do before I start on, especially with this being painted, I don't want to keep repeating myself, but looks like somebody put these in and painted over it, is I like to take the screwdriver or something and get into this clip here. I already got the other side off, and just kind of knock it loose a little bit. If it's got rust or whatever. This one's got some paint on it. That just helps. Actually, it just fell out. So that just kind of helps to free it up. Usually they won't just fall out like that. You have to take a pair of needle nose or something and click it back in. But I think with this paint stuff on here, it's just and I think it's relatively new. So I go ahead and put a socket on here. I think this is 1 1/8 inch socket. And just make sure your dry shaft's level. And I just go ahead, I use this little punch. And it's almost the size of the cap. And I'm going to go ahead and just kind of tap it out and try to get this one side out first. It's got a little bit of movement, it's starting to move a little here underneath. That's why it kind of sucks. Either way you do it, unless you use a press. The press is probably the easiest way, but then you have to risk bending stuff. All right, we're starting to get a little bit of movement. I'm going to go ahead and get something a little bit bigger to put in there. In fact, this punch might be just a little bit too small. So let me find something else. A lot of times you can use a socket or whatever. I don't like beating on my sockets like that, but I'll find something to put in here. It's a little bit bigger. Give me a little bit better of a kick when I punch it and then or hit it, and then we'll pick it back up. All right, so I use a 3/4 socket with old extension I had. I don't care about this extension. I've used it before to beat stuff, so I just use that to protect my socket. And on this one, I got it down as far as I can get it. You can see the cup sticking out, but it's bottomed out on the bottom of the yoke, so it won't go any far without pulling this cup out. There's a special tool you can get to get that out, but I think I'm going to go ahead and replace the whole U-joint just because I'm going to have to use the vise and grip this and then pry up on it. We'll just see. These are hardened caps. They're pretty strong, but anyway, I'm going to go get set up on the vise. We'll take it over there. Sometimes these will come out without having to put them in the vise. The cup will come out, and then you can clear it. But we don't have enough clearance here. And the actual yoke is bound out against the U-joint, so I can't beat it down any farther. So on this particular case, we're going to have to use the vise to help us. We're going to clamp on this bottom bearing right here and then pry up on the dry shaft, and that should get it loose. So let me go set it up on the vise, and then we'll pick it back up. All right, so I got it clamped into the vise down here. You want it pretty tight. You don't want it to move. Again, these are hard, so you're probably not gonna hurt them. And we're gonna go ahead and just put 2 pry bars under here and pull up on it. That should release that cap. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that real quick, and then I'll show you after I'm done. All right, so I just tightened it down, like I said. Just put 2 pry bars on both sides and pull it up. Pull the dry shaft up, and that popped out. The only reason why I didn't set you up because I don't have a good place over here to put the camera, but that's just how you do. That's basically how you do that. So we're gonna go ahead and get the rest of it out, and then I'm just gonna go ahead and replace the U-joint since I did put this in the vise. I don't trust that, so I'm gonna have to go source one of those out real quick too. All right, kind of found a spot to set you up at. So I went ahead and drove it back down the other way, so we can get this side out, this cap out. I'm just gonna take 2 pry bars. Kind of show you what I did on the other side. You're just going to lift up on them. And it's just like that. See the caps here? Now this should come out. And then we can go from there. We're going to take the U-joint out of the dry shaft, which is the same procedure. And then we'll go ahead and put the new yoke on. All right, so I was looking for information on which U-joint to get. I actually ran across something. I can't believe I didn't see this before. I didn't look it up, but they actually Toyota said they had a problem with this transmission fluid leak through dry shaft slip yoke. 2004 Sequoia and Tundra 2-wheel drive only. August 1st, 2006. So they knew about this in 2006, and I guess it's only 2004 2-wheel drive miles. So this is the part number I got. It's a 5-153X universal joint. We'll go ahead and put this in and get this going. But yeah, evidently they had this problem. I didn't see that bulletin when I was doing a little bit of research on it a couple weeks ago. But yeah, it's right there in the service data. So anyway, let's get this back together. All right, so I went ahead and took the U-joint out of the dry shaft too. It's the same procedure. Just take the clips out and beat it out. When you take the one out of the dry shaft, you don't have to put it in the vise because it's got enough room to slip out without doing that. And I don't know if you can tell here. You can kind of see here how it's real wet and red all around the inside here. That's actually where it's leaking the fluid at. It's all through here, this plug or whatever they call it. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and start putting the U-joints back in and get the dry shaft back in and get this thing back on the road. This is the new updated part number. I don't know if you can read it that well. It's 37302-0W010. And that's what I got from the Toyota dealer. This is a Lexus Toyota box. Again, they said they updated this yoke, and it's 37302-0W010. And there was a couple different part numbers on it when I went to go get this. And I guess they've updated a couple times throughout the years or whatever. So that's the newest one, I think. So we'll go ahead and get the U-joint back in the yoke real quick. Put the cap in. Just got it kind of like hand started. Put the joint in. I'm just going to kind of hold the joint up. And I'm just going to tap this in kind of lightly to get it seated. You see it goes in fairly easy. So I'm just going to keep tapping this a little bit. All right, so I'm almost flush. I'm going to keep going a little bit longer so I can just put the... And I'm not hitting this real hard. You don't have to beat this real hard. When they're new, they should slip in pretty easily. And I'm just kind of holding the joint so I don't lose any of the needles or anything that are inside there. They're pre-greased. All right, so now that's flush with this. I'm gonna go ahead and start the other side. It should be, centered, obviously. So I'm gonna go ahead and start the other side. And I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm just gonna tap on it. You're just gonna want to make sure it's nice and centered. You don't want to mess up any of your needle bearings in there. Just gonna flip it over and just kind of tap it. I'm just gonna make sure that it's going down straight and we're not hitting any needle bearings. All right, you can kind of see it's still moving and everything's good. So now what I'm going to do is just get my socket. I'm going to push this side down flat so I can get that clip in. So I'm just going to get my socket and just tap it down a little bit. You don't want to go crazy. We're just going to go down a little bit to get that get it down far enough to get your one clip in. That's an old clip there. That's not. Got a little bit farther to go. I think we're almost there. I'm going to do a couple more. Yeah. Now I can see that I can see the ridge, so I'm going to go ahead. I actually went a little bit too far. I think I might knock it back just a hair. I can see the ridge. I'm not going to go back too much. I'll go back just a couple more hits. Yeah, so I can still see the ridge, so I'm going to go ahead and put the clip in. Of course, you get new clips with the U-joint. And then once we get this in, we're going to center it. You don't want to go too crazy when we hit back the other way, because we don't want to bow out this clip. Give it. Usually these just snap right in. I don't know why it's. There we go. Yep, almost. Wanting to hassle me. But once we get this side snapped in, we're just going to flip it over. If I can get this side snapped in. There we go. Now it's in there. We got a little bit of a gap still, so what I want to do is push this side down a little bit, but I don't want to go too crazy because I don't want to put a bunch of pressure on that clip I just put in. So we're just going to do a couple taps and get this side down to where we can put the clip in on this side. We shouldn't have to go too far. And you'll kind of be able to tell if you go too far because the joint will be a little bit tighter. Got a little bit more to go. Pretty close now. I think maybe one or two more hits. Take your time. You don't have to go. You don't want to go too far and put too much pressure on the other side. So I think we got enough clearance now. We can put it in. It's still really easy to turn. So if you get too much pressure on one side, sometimes they won't rotate very easily. But I think we're pretty good on this. Get this clip in. It's almost in. Maybe I gotta go down a little bit more. Maybe I gotta go down just a little bit more. It's not clipping in. Close, maybe. Super close. If you got it all the way down in there, it should snap in pretty easy. Not all the way in. All right, snapped in all the way. We're still pretty easy to do this. So I'm just gonna check and make sure everything's seated right, and then we'll start putting in the dry shaft. It's just doing the same thing, and on this side, I started the cap, tapped in a little bit, put this cap in, tapped in a little bit. So I'm just gonna go ahead and tap them in the rest of the way, put the clips in, and then we should be good to go to put this back in. So that's pretty much the process on that, and then we'll start putting it back together. I will point out, if you're going to do this like I'm doing on the ground like this, when you got the socket underneath it, when you're putting it back in, instead of having it where it's going to catch it, you want to flip it over so that it doesn't push it out when you're pushing this side back in. So we're just going to, you're going to put it there after you got it started, and then we're just going to tap on this one until it gets flushed down. We're going to put that pin back in there, or the little clips, which should be like right there. And then that'll hold it so that doesn't pop out of that side. So, and you can see it's centered and everything's still moving freely. So this, all I have to do is just put that little retainer in, flip it over, knock the other side down a little bit, put the retainer in. All right, so it's all back together. I made sure all the clips are in good, and it's free both directions. If you have any kind of binding or it's hard to move in one direction or another, then you're probably not centered right. You're putting too much pressure on one side or the other. This has to be centered pretty good in here for it to move like it's supposed to be, like free like that. I forgot to mention too, I did mark the back of the dry shaft to the rear end, so I know which way to put that back in. I know a lot of people argue about that. They'll say you don't have to mark it, or you do have to mark it. I do mark it just because then I don't have to worry about it. It only takes a couple seconds. And regardless if you have to or not, then I know it's back where it was, and I eliminate that issue if there is some kind of vibration or whatever. I know I put it back in the same spot. So anyway, that's about it for this one. We'll go ahead and put it back in there. Of course, you're just going to slide that side in first towards the transmission, and then put your 4 nuts in with your washers. Make sure they're tight, and you should be good to go. It shouldn't have any more leaks on your 04 Tundra or Sequoia. So Sequoia. I can't even say that. So, yep, that's it. And unfortunately, I guess these factory ones leak here at this plug, and that's where you're getting a lot of your fluid at. I don't. It said only 04. I don't know if the other ones have issue or not. If other years do or not, but this one definitely did. So, anyway, thanks for watching. As always, God bless.